About 3 years ago, I started working on this project with Michelle Lee and Alex on Jasenovac in Croatia and the concentration camp there and the atrocities that went on. And getting into this project and beginning to look at the pictures and to see what went on and the things that we need to really keep in our minds and our hearts lest we let it happen again. And today, this is going to be a great presentation. It's something that I have really loved being involved in, love getting to understand better. And I would like to introduce Michelle Lee. Michelle was in it from the very beginning, and she and I, we passed pictures and a lot of stuff that went into Alex's book on Jasenovac.
I just want to kind of give you a little bit of a background on how I was introduced to this. I homeschool my son, and we were in a program called Classical Conversations. And one of his assignments was to read the book, The Hiding Place, with Corrie ten Boom. Well, we didn't want to write just an average, literary analysis or anything. So we wanted to get a little bit more of something, maybe find somebody with the same type of story. And then we learned about, Alex is a family friend, and so we reached out to him and learned about a woman in his life. And then so we kind of integrated his story in with The Hiding Place, with Corrie ten Boom's story. Along the lines, whenever we were talking with him, we learned about his father, and his father was killed at Jasenovac. Well, I'd never heard of Jasenovac, and I've done quite a bit of research over the years since I was in school about the Holocaust. So, had never heard of Jasenovac, so I did a little bit of research because I'm a homeschool mom, and that's what we do. And so whenever I started doing a little bit of research and learning how horrific it was, even Hitler himself was disgusted by what if there's a quote where he is disgusted by what they did. They weren't, what Hitler did was horrific enough. I mean, he wanted to just get rid of, the Jews and those beneath them. But he wanted to do it quickly, just get over and done with, and just get them out of the way. Well, what they used to show, that's the Croatian Nazis, that's what they were called. They wanted them to feel the pain. They did it by hand. They wanted them to feel the torture, and it wasn't just men. I mean, it was women and children, and they were very brutal. And I read this one book that I'd found called The Smell of Burning Flesh. I could only read a few pages at a time, and I would get sick. It was terrible. So anyway, just doing the research and learning about this and knowing that this was like the dark secret of the Holocaust. The Ustasha hid, they burned all documentation, so you can't even determine how many people were actually killed. There's so much research of trying to determine, and it's kind of between, as low as, well, I say low, like 250,000 to up to like 1.4 million. They just can't find enough information to get a clearer number. But I even went with my son and some other homeschoolers, we went to the Holocaust Museum. The gentleman there, he had never even heard of Jasenovac, and that just blew me away. How can this is the Holocaust Museum, and you don't even have any knowledge of this horrible concentration camp? And so that's when Alex and I kind of got together, and we just felt like we needed to get the word out of what was going on, because it's even going on today. And doing all the research that I've done, the Holocaust probably wouldn't even have happened if so many people weren't bystanders. And that was a problem. It was probably about 80% were bystanders. If those people would have just stood up and fought, then this may have not even happened. And that's why we need to educate children, adults, of becoming that upstander instead of that bystander, so this won't happen again.
Even before we started working on this project, I met Alex Pollock. And let me tell you, you're talking about a gentleman that he and I have bonded. We've been knowing each other about, 3 years now. We've bonded, we've fussed at each other, we've told stories, we have gotten to really be close. And I am thankful that God brought a man in my life that I think so much of. And Alex, I want you to come forward. Alex is an engineer, moved into the Humble area in 1974. He's been here, been involved in the community, and he has a great story to tell.
I'm going to do it in two parts. We are limited by time. And the first thing I would like to start is about the short biography about me and how I came to Humble, Texas. Is simply that in 1975, I stood at Shell gas station on 59 with my wife, and she's a witness to it. And I told her, which is 40 years ago, this place is going to grow enormously. That's where we're going to live. That was it. So it's a great honor for me to be at a position to tell a story which unfortunately was true, but even worse, is repeating itself today. And that is a tragedy of it all. I was born in Croatia in 1933. Until 1940, I had a very nice childhood. My father worked for the Mobil oil refinery in Bosanski Brod, Bosnia, one of the first big refineries built by Kellogg, also an American firm. I was 7 years old, and suddenly we had to leave our home because the event that some people knew about actually took place violently, without any warning. My mother's sister and a neighbor, we had to flee to Adriatic coast because Jasenovac was an absolutely no place to go. And through the house of a very, very good lady, her name was Denise Yoris, a Catholic lady, she saved us, gave us the false names, and we ended eventually in 1942 in the concentration camp on the island of Rab in the Adriatic. We stayed there till 1943, when, of course, Mussolini was capitulated and the Allied forces entered Italy. But even then, of course, you could not move, so my mother took the decision to go through Croatia from the Adriatic coast to Zagreb, thinking that things will be better there. Well, that was a mistake because we were with the partisans. My mother worked for the general staff of Marshal Tito, and she eventually was caught by the Nazis. Those were German Nazis because she was an official. She spoke 3 languages, German, Serbo-Croat, and English. But we were lucky enough, again, through Mrs. Yoris, to be put in an orphanage till the end of the war in 1945. And then I went to Romania, where my aunt lived. Through the ordeal of myself and my family and others, I've learned that during the life in World War II, you saw the worst and the best of the human nature. And here where Rotary, I know, has done a superb job, and this is why I'm addressing this really is a first speech or presentation I'm doing after talking to the children in various schools through Michelle. The problem with us survivors is we never wanted to share these stories. I mean, I was involved on new survivors. We never talked about it. One of them actually was a survivor from Auschwitz and Dachau. But my reason was really, Michelle brought me to this, to make this change, and that was very, very important. Now, the worst case scenarios occurred in the last couple of years, maybe last year, because, like the French say, déjà vu, we've seen it again. And I watched a program last night, somebody was in Mosul, in Iraq. That was exactly a repetition of Croatia. The reason we are talking about Jasenovac, again, as Michelle said, nobody knows about it. But Jasenovac was a blueprint of Auschwitz, and it is a blueprint for ISIS. The atrocities they are performing in Libya, Iraq, are identical to what happened, and I witnessed. Hanging people, cutting their throats, etc., etc. And this, is fact, and this is what I'm trying with the team of people surrounding me to do something about it. The help of people like Mr. Chandler, Vincent, and so on is really remarkable, because the photographs we found and they reproduced it is incredible. So I have a total confidence now that people who are going to watch it, see it, or ask about it will be aware of it. The problem with Jasenovac and Croatia at the time is the same problem we have now with ISIS or the Middle East. There is only a group of people who commit atrocities for various personal reasons. Maybe insanity, I don't know. But they are held by somebody. And those somebody have to be brought down. With financial aid, political issues, etc., etc. But there is a solution. And solution has to take place now. All I want to do is present what actually I witnessed or what happened. To me, this was really a lifetime journey. You can imagine coming out of the rims of hell. I went and lived I left Yugoslavia in 1945. I lived in Romania for several years, did my high school education in another language. Then my grandfather decided I should do my military service in Israel, and that was in 1953 to 55. And then I went to study in England, took my degree in chemical engineering, and came to the United States. I assure you that was not an H-1B visa. I was selected. And my first contact, actually, in Bayport, Houston, was very interesting. I really wasn't as embraced as well as Chandler did. After all, my accent wasn't from Central Texas. I told you I come from East Texas. And another interesting thing was that they didn't understand that they don't call the shots. It was the first of its kind large plant. And, I represented the owner. And so things have changed in Texas. But still, there's a good people of Texas to understand. And I have very great hopes that whatever you see here, and we did the first booklet with Mr. Chandler and Vincent, who is here. He's being educated by us. and hopefully one day he will be a great mind like us, or significant participant. But as it happens, Texas is the right place to start a mission like this, because the number of people that understand the problems of humanity, and Croatia, there were very, very few. One of them was Mrs. Yoris, who saved us, and now we are talking in Texas, more and more people I meet. Surrounding us are a lot of evidence of what happened, and we are all ready to share with you the details. Now, specifically, our task is to bring the tragedy of children and loss of a generation. The Nazis in Croatia, Ustashi, were very smart in their madness. They eliminated first the most important, significant citizens of the country. My father being one of them. He was the only engineer chemist that could handle in a refinery. Then 124 attorneys and judges were done. They all went to Jasenovac. So I just want to close with one statement. And that statement is at the bottom of the poster, which was done immediately and fast by Mr. Chandler, and that comes from Abraham Lincoln, and I believe it. The problem is that nobody knew about it in 1939 or 1940, especially in Croatia. This is why we are here. It is a warning. Anything that can happen happens slowly and then suddenly, like a tsunami. Believe me, it's incredible. One last story is this that I cannot understand, of course. My parents should have seen that tragedy that would happen. They studied in Vienna in 1930. But the warning was that I remember I was only 7 years old, that we walked every Sunday. That was a tradition in these countries. You go to the central square and you meet people and you walk. I will never forget that. We all had a kind of like we have a name, and also it was Judeo, Jew, Židov in Croatian. I mean, I can't understand that nobody was aware of what's coming. But that was an early warning system. And I personally cannot ignore this. I can see the signs. You see them on television, but that's nothing. That's individual happenings, which that quality happened in Germany, individuals. But what happened in Croatia was massive. Trainloads of people. Several people of various religions. Actually, the minority were the Gypsies and the Jews. The greatest number were the Serbs. So I want to give the next opportunity, hopefully he can equal my presentation, Larry Craici. He will tell you what we intend to do, and we want you to be aware of it. And believe me, you will remember probably President Reagan. If not us, who? If not now, when?
I've known Alex now since October of last year. He said that he needed somebody to help him a little bit. As we came in here today, I think the term he used was, "This is your show." I didn't think that I was in charge. I thought Alex was, but that's beside the point. I want to give you a little background, a little more than the other two speakers have. You know, as they both have emphasized, we all know about the German atrocities that occurred at Auschwitz and Buchholz and some of the other locations. But we don't know what happened in the Ustascia-controlled sites from Italy. They had their own concentration camps, and Jasenovac was one of them. I did bring in a map. It's actually from a 1940 Houston Chronicle. We found it and copied it. It shows you just about where Alex is talking about. The camp was in northern, what we called in the past, Yugoslavia, on the Sava River. The Sava River is shown in the northern part of Yugoslavia there, and you kind of get a little orientation. And you see that the world at that time was not the same as it is today. There are very few records of what happened in the Italian-controlled concentration camps. The Germans were very meticulous. I think today, after 50 years or so, we know almost every person that passed through a concentration camp there, every guard, everyone that tried to help to get the internees out and back to safety. But we know very little of that about Jasenovac. And this is one of the concerns and the reasons that you do not hear about it. You don't see about it you don't see anything about it in the Holocaust Museum. Alex, in I think it was 2013, met with several of his Jewish friends and other interested party, and discussed the possibility of having a memorial garden for the Jasenovac concentration camp survivors and the relatives of them, and to make the area concerned or informed of what actually happened there, and to make sure that that does not occur again. They wanted to honor the children that were lost in that time, and to reflect upon what happened there, and make everyone aware and cognizant of what is going on in the world today, and how to recognize and stop what is in the future, potentially. The group that Alex was with decided to form a team and to develop a garden. The team selected a site, which was in the Kingwood area on the northwest corner of Lake Houston, and West Lake Houston Drive, I believe it is. And it is, they have developed a team with committees to develop that park. They have assigned committees for education about it, to development of the park, project engineering, and the other aspects of developing a park. And they have got the land dedicated to the project, and they came up with a mission and a vision for the park. Now let me put, as any group does, they tend to be a little, I'll say, politically perfect in their description of the mission and the vision. So let me put it in layman's term for you. What the group is trying to do is to acquire and develop a facility or facilities where all may recall the past with reverence and respect, and look forward to the future with knowledge and commitment. That's the mission, I believe, of the team. The vision of the team now is to raise the awareness of the general public to the past atrocities that were committed and to provide the capability and commitment to avoid similar actions against the world's children in the future. As Alex pointed out, and Michelle pointed out, in the world today, children are being abused daily. As we see on the news, they are even being beheaded for no reason whatsoever, and we have lost those lives. A preliminary plot plan was developed. Landscaping and proposed monuments have been prepared for the Kingwood site, and funding has been prepared to cover construction of the entry gate to the Kingwood Memorial Garden. And this year, we also were happy to find a second spot, a second location to develop into a garden. This is located at the St. Sava Serbian Orthodox Church on the west side of 45. You will see some sketches that we have just begun on that, and these are some of the monuments and things that we want to consider putting into the new site over there. Things such as we have talked about the possibility of duplicating or replicating the guard gate or the guard shack in the park or in the camp. Also, we have pictures around showing what the camp looked like in the 1940s, and we think that we can duplicate some of the fencing and the gates and the things, so it will have a feeling of the old camp, as well as allow us to look forward into the future. As part of the camp developments, or part of the garden developments, I should say, we need to have some websites, or a website, to describe, to make available the information that we have, all these pictures that Alex has been gathering up and reproducing over the years, and to actually bring that to the public. The website needs to tell us more about what we can do and what the stories of the fast disappearing survivors and relatives of those survivors. Tell the stories of the lives that have disappeared. We also want to develop a library to store these pictures in and to allow research such as Michelle and her son have been doing into further development. All of these things require more in the way of assistance and labor that we don't have at the present time. We now would like to just summarize and say that the research that we do exposes the atrocities of the past and provides wisdom to recognize when it is happening today and prevent it from reoccurring in the future. Thank you.